Hey everybody, working on the 309 tonight, and what I'm doing is I'm rebuilding the disc that goes onto the fertilizer shoe. So I figured I'd make a quick video. So we'll start out with the parts. First part is your cap. This is a brand new cap, so it actually shows you exactly what they're supposed to look like. Your disc. This disc is still made. If you call Messick's, you can buy a brand new one for about 70 bucks. The bearing themselves, sealed bearing, it is 205 K93. This is a common bearing. This is an original, and this one's probably made in the USA. This is one I actually just bought before I knew before I knew I was getting this one, but I still needed more anyways. So you can still buy these. They're about $12.50 a piece. So the next parts, I actually did some of the work already. So I'm just going to explain the other two parts. So the other two parts that you have are an O-ring that's right here, which slides right into there. And then you have the bolt that actually goes through the bearing. So I guess step number one is first you have to break it apart. So on yours, you'll see there'll be a rivet in each one of these. There'll be like a little nipple in each one of these. You're gonna have to cut those off or grind them off. As soon as you cut them off, basically this will pop free, and you could pull this cap off, and then you're left with this. This one's already been rebuilt. It's a brand new bearing in there. So the next step is, how do I get the original bearing out? How do I get it out of here? Because as far as I know, a normal bearing puller, there's nothing really to grab onto. So I actually did these things twice. I did two of them one time, and then when I went back to sandblast, I did another one, and we did them two different ways. The first way, which probably isn't ideal, is my father's friend. He basically just lit this thing up with a torch until that thing glowed and you almost melted it, and just pried it out. The bolt was still fine. The bearing, it doesn't really matter if the bearing was shot, right? Because it was shot already. Probably not the best way to do it. So the second time we tried something different. So the second time, what we basically did is we put it in a vise. He had a really good vise. Mine's a little crappy, junky vise. Probably wouldn't work as well on mine. But he put it in a vise, and he clamped down on the nut itself. So because we didn't want to screw up any of the threads on this. So after we clamped it in there real tight, he used his torch, and he basically heated the cap up. Real good. And then after that thing was heated up pretty good, he just used a hammer and just slightly, hit it all the way around, and the thing popped out pretty easily. So once that was out, we took it, I sandblasted it real quick, primed it, and then it was back to the installation of the new bearing. So what we did, I don't know if this is how they did it at the factory, but what we did is we basically put a bunch of grease in the bottom of the cap right here, and then we just lubed up the sides like that to make it slide easier. And then you took the bolt with the bearing and then placed it in here. And you're gonna need, well, I mean, this is just the way that we did it. I don't know if you could do it another way or not. What we did is, after we placed the bearing and the bolt in here, he had a 10-pound press, or a 10-ton press, I believe, one of those Harbor Freight ones. And what he ended up having was, he had these huge sockets that are probably made for like a bulldozer. Something normal people don't ever use, but this cap fit perfectly in there. So he put that onto his press, and then put a pipe over the top of the bearing. Brought his 10-ton press down, pushed on that thing, and they popped right into place like nothing. So So they're probably not spinning as free as you would think, but with a little bit of resistance on the ground, I'm sure they'll actually be probably perfect. So now the last step of this is I have to get some screws that are like concaved. So if you look, I'm not sure the actual name for it, but you can actually see how these are made to be like riveted so that they're flat. So I'm gonna get some screws that go through this, and instead of using rivets, I'm gonna use screws and nuts, because all the research I've done, they've always said that these things, don't last very long, and you got to change these bearings all the time. We're gonna see about that. So the next step to this will be taking these caps that already have the bearing in it. I'm gonna get some new O-rings, plop that thing on there and screw it up and put it on my fertilizer shoe. So that I'll cover that in another video, but that is pretty much how we disassembled that, reassembled it, and when we put this back on the planter, it'll be as good as new. So any other questions, just hit me up in the comments, and I can answer, I can try to answer all your questions. Thanks.